Gabriel had once been Amanda's entire world. They were the kind of couple everyone envied, partners in every sense of the word, building a life together from nothing. Amanda remembered the early days vividly. The tiny apartment with peeling wallpaper, the late nights eating instant noodles while Gabriel stayed up crafting business plans, and the whispered promises of a bright future. "We'll make it, Amanda," he had said, his eyes alight with determination. "One day, we'll have everything we've ever dreamed of." Amanda believed him. How could she not? Gabriel had a way of making her feel invincible, like they were unstoppable as long as they had each other. She worked tirelessly to support them both, taking on 2 jobs to keep the bills paid while Gabriel focused on his dreams. It was exhausting, but she didn't mind. Love made sacrifices worth it, or so she thought. As the years passed, Gabriel's business ideas began to take off. His hard work bore fruit, and his small tech startup grew into something much larger. With newfound wealth came a whirlwind of changes: expensive suits, luxury cars, and invitations to exclusive events. Amanda, who had been his rock during the hard times, now found herself on the periphery of his increasingly glamorous life. At first, she didn't mind. She told herself Gabriel was simply busy, adjusting to their new reality. But as his successes piled up, Amanda began to notice subtle shifts in their relationship. The long conversations they used to share became shorter and more one-sided. Gabriel stopped asking about her day, brushing off her concerns with dismissive comments like, "You wouldn't understand, Amanda. This world is different." She tried to adapt, dressing up for events she felt out of place in, and smiling politely as Gabriel networked with powerful people who barely acknowledged her. But no matter how much effort she put in, Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that she was becoming invisible to him. The final blow came on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Gabriel had been distant for weeks, spending more time away on business trips and offering vague explanations when she asked where he'd been. Amanda, ever hopeful, decided to plan a surprise dinner, a chance to reconnect. She spent hours preparing his favorite meal, setting the table with candles and the good china they rarely used. But when Gabriel walked through the door, his reaction was not what she had hoped for. "What's all this?" he asked, his tone more irritated than surprised. "I thought we could have a nice dinner together," Amanda said, forcing a smile. "We haven't had much time for each other lately." Gabriel sighed, loosening his tie. "Amanda, I don't have time for this. I'm exhausted, and I have an early meeting tomorrow." The disappointment in her chest was palpable, but Amanda tried to mask it. "It's just one night, Gabriel. Please." He didn't even sit down. Instead, he stared at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable, before saying the words that would shatter her world. "Amanda, we need to talk." The conversation that followed was a blur of cold words and even colder realizations. Gabriel told her he had outgrown their relationship, that his life was moving in a direction she couldn't follow. "You're not the woman I need by my side anymore," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. Amanda's heart broke into 1,000 pieces. "What does that even mean, Gabriel? After everything we've been through, you're just leaving?" "I'm not leaving," he replied, though the irony of his words was lost on him. "I'm moving forward. And you should too." The next morning, Gabriel was gone. Amanda woke up to an empty apartment and a hastily written note on the counter. "I'll have someone come by for the rest of my things. Take care of yourself." But the humiliation didn't end there. Within weeks, Gabriel's new relationship with Veronica became public knowledge. The tabloids were relentless, splashing photos of the couple across their pages, dining at upscale restaurants, vacationing in exotic locations, and attending high-profile events. Veronica was everything Amanda wasn't: glamorous, sophisticated, and a perfect match for Gabriel's new image. For Amanda, it was a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. Everywhere she turned, there was Gabriel, smiling alongside the woman who had taken her place. Friends and acquaintances offered her pitying looks, their whispered conversations cutting deeper than any insult. "Poor Amanda," they would say. She never stood a chance. Amanda tried to move on, but the weight of Gabriel's betrayal clung to her like a shadow. Nights were the hardest. She would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of their relationship in her mind. What had she done wrong? How had she become so disposable to the man she had given everything to? It wasn't just the heartbreak that consumed her. It was the loss of her sense of self. Amanda had built her life around Gabriel, sacrificing her dreams to support his. Without him, she felt adrift, like a ship without an anchor. Then, one day, Amanda's world was turned upside down yet again. She had been feeling unwell for weeks, nausea, fatigue, and a persistent ache in her body. At first, she thought it was the stress of everything she had been through. But when the symptoms didn't go away, she went to the doctor. The news was both a shock and a lifeline. Amanda was pregnant. Her initial reaction was a mix of fear and disbelief. How could she possibly raise a child alone? She had no stable income, no support system, and no idea how to be a mother. But as the days passed, a new emotion began to take root: determination. This child would be her second chance, her reason to keep going. Gabriel may have abandoned her, but he would not take away the one thing that truly mattered. Amanda reached out to Gabriel once, hoping he might care enough to be involved. But his response was as cold as ever. "I've moved on, Amanda," he said. "Don't try to drag me back into your life with this." His words stung, but Amanda refused to let them break her. She realized then that she couldn't rely on Gabriel, not for herself, and certainly not for her child. That night, as she cradled her growing belly, Amanda made a promise to herself and her unborn child. She would be enough. No matter how hard the road ahead, she would find a way to give them both a life worth living. Little did she know, this promise would be the foundation for a strength she never knew she had, and a revelation that would shake Gabriel's world to its core. The weeks following Amanda's discovery of her pregnancy were some of the most challenging of her life. Though she had resolved to face her future head-on, the weight of her circumstances bore down on her like a relentless storm. Alone in her small, dimly lit apartment, Amanda struggled to find her footing. Her days began early, her body sluggish and drained from the toll of her pregnancy. Mornings brought waves of nausea that left her curled up on the bathroom floor, clutching her stomach and willing herself to push through. Even as her body grew weaker, Amanda's determination grew stronger. She couldn't afford to falter, not now, not with a child depending on her. Amanda worked long hours at a local cafe, a job she had taken to keep the bills paid after Gabriel's departure. The work was exhausting, and the pay barely covered her rent and groceries. She stood behind the counter, serving customers with a forced smile, her swollen ankles throbbing and her back aching. Every latte she prepared, every dish she carried to a table, was a reminder of how far she had fallen from the life she once shared with Gabriel. Yet, in the quiet moments between the chaos of her shifts, Amanda found herself dreaming about the baby growing inside her. She imagined holding her child for the first time, their tiny fingers wrapping around hers. She imagined their first laugh, their first steps, and the life they might share together. A life built on love and resilience, no matter how modest. But the challenges were unrelenting. Amanda's isolation became more pronounced as her pregnancy progressed. Her circle of friends had dwindled over the years, and those who remained didn't know how to comfort her. Some avoided her altogether, unsure of what to say. Others offered pitying words that only deepened her sense of inadequacy. "I'm sure you'll figure it out," they would say, their voices tinged with doubt. "You're strong, Amanda." Strength, Amanda thought bitterly, wasn't something she felt. Strength didn't pay the mounting bills, and it didn't soothe the gnawing fear of bringing a child into the world without a safety net. The nights were the hardest. Amanda often lay awake, her hands resting on her growing belly, her mind racing with worries she couldn't quiet. What kind of life could she offer her child? Would they resent her for the choices she had made? For the father, who had turned his back on them before they were even born? As Amanda's pregnancy reached its second trimester, she made the difficult decision to contact Gabriel. She had no intention of rekindling their relationship, but she felt he deserved to know about the child they had created together. Deep down, a part of her also hoped he might care enough to help. The call was brief and devastating. "Gabriel, I'm pregnant," Amanda said, her voice trembling. It's your child. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Gabriel's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Amanda, I've moved on. Don't try to drag me back into your mess. This isn't my problem. Tears streamed down Amanda's face as she gripped the phone, her knuckles turning white. This is your child, Gabriel. How can you say that? I don't want anything to do with this, he said coldly. Goodbye, Amanda. The line went dead. Amanda sat in stunned silence, the phone slipping from her hand. Her chest felt like it was caving in, her heart breaking all over again. Not for herself, but for the child who would grow up without a father. That night, as she lay in bed, Amanda made a decision. Gabriel would not define her child's future. She would be mother and father, provider and protector. She would do whatever it took to give them a life filled with love, even if it meant sacrificing everything. Amanda's pregnancy was anything but easy. As her body changed, so did her ability to keep up with the demands of her job. Simple tasks became monumental challenges. Standing for hours on end left her legs swollen and aching, and lifting trays of food strained her already sore back. Her employer, though sympathetic, made it clear that they couldn't accommodate her needs forever. We'll do our best, Amanda, her manager said, but if you can't keep up, we'll have to find someone who can. The thought of losing her job terrified her. Without it, she would lose her apartment, and without her apartment, she and her baby would have nowhere to go. Amanda began taking on small sewing jobs at home in the evenings, patching up torn clothing for neighbors in exchange for a few extra dollars. Her hands ached from the repetitive motion, but the sound of her sewing machine became a steady rhythm that kept her grounded. Amid the challenges, there were moments of light that kept Amanda going. She felt her baby kick for the first time one quiet evening as she sat on the couch, cradling a cup of tea. The sensation brought tears to her eyes, but this time, they weren't tears of despair. Hi there, she whispered, her hand resting on her belly. I can't wait to meet you. She began talking to her baby every night, sharing her hopes and dreams for their future. The connection she felt with her unborn child became a source of strength, a reminder that she wasn't truly alone. Amanda also found solace in small acts of kindness from strangers. A regular customer at the cafe noticed her struggling to carry a tray one afternoon and offered to help. A neighbor left a basket of baby clothes on her doorstep with a note that simply read, "For your little one. You're stronger than you think." These gestures, though small, reminded Amanda that the world wasn't entirely unkind. As Amanda's due date approached, she began to feel a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in months. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew she had something worth fighting for. One night, as she sat in the small nursery she had pieced together with second-hand furniture and donated items, Amanda spoke aloud to her child. I don't know what the future holds, she said, her voice steady but soft. But I promise you this, I will love you with everything I have. I will fight for you, protect you, and give you the best life I can. We don't need anyone else. We have each other, and that's enough. Little did Amanda know, the strength she was building in those quiet, lonely moments would carry her through the challenges to come, and set the stage for a confrontation that would shake Gabriel's carefully constructed world to its core. 2 years passed, though for Amanda, it felt like a lifetime. Every day had been a battle, but also a victory. Her son, Lucas, now nearly 2 years old, had become her entire world. He was the light that guided her through her darkest days, the reason she smiled even when her heart ached. With his vibrant eyes and mischievous smile, he was the perfect mix of innocence and joy. But what struck Amanda most was how much Lucas resembled Gabriel. She saw Gabriel in the curve of Lucas's small nose, the way his dark curls fell across his forehead, and the way his smile lit up his face. The resemblance was uncanny, as though the universe refused to let her forget. Yet, despite the pain Gabriel had caused, Amanda felt no bitterness when she looked at her son. Lucas was hers, a symbol of her strength and resilience. He was the reason she kept moving forward, building a life that neither Gabriel nor anyone else could take credit for. One crisp morning, Amanda stood at her small kitchen counter, pouring cereal into a bowl for Lucas when a fancy envelope slid through her mail slot. The metallic sheen of the envelope glinted in the sunlight, and her heart sank as she picked it up. She didn't have to open it to know where it came from. The embossed gold lettering confirmed her suspicion. Gabriel Montoya and Veronica Rivera cordially invite you to their wedding. Amanda froze, her breath catching in her throat. She hadn't heard from Gabriel since he had dismissed her pregnancy as her problem. He had disappeared into the glittering world he had chosen with Veronica, leaving Amanda to navigate the challenges of single motherhood. And now, he had the audacity to send her an invitation? She held the envelope tightly, her knuckles turning white. It felt like an insult, a cruel reminder of how little Gabriel thought of her. But as she turned the envelope over in her hands, anger gave way to something else. Determination. She wasn't the same broken woman Gabriel had left behind. She had rebuilt herself, brick by brick, and Lucas was proof of that. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to show Gabriel the life he had walked away from. The weeks leading up to the wedding passed quickly. Amanda debated whether or not to go, but in her heart, she knew the decision had already been made. This wasn't about revenge or drama. It was about closure. She didn't need Gabriel's approval or validation, but she wanted him to see that she had risen above the wreckage he had left behind. She wanted him to see Lucas, the son he had abandoned, thriving despite everything. When the day of the wedding arrived, Amanda dressed simply but elegantly. Her dark green dress hugged her figure, and her hair was styled in soft waves that framed her face. She looked radiant, a vision of quiet confidence. Lucas, dressed in a tiny suit, clung to her hand as they made their way to the grand venue. The wedding was being held at an extravagant estate, complete with sprawling gardens and a towering marble fountain at the entrance. As Amanda walked through the ornate gates, she could feel the eyes of the guests on her. Whispers rippled through the crowd as they noticed Lucas, his striking resemblance to Gabriel impossible to ignore. "Is that Amanda?" "Gabriel's ex," someone murmured. "And the boy, he looks just like Gabriel," another whispered. Amanda held her head high, ignoring the stares and whispers. Lucas, oblivious to the tension, grinned up at her, his small hand clutching hers tightly. They entered the lavishly decorated hall, the air thick with the scent of roses and expensive perfume. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, casting golden light over the sea of well-dressed guests. As Amanda moved through the crowd, she finally spotted him. Gabriel stood at the front of the room, dressed in a tailored tuxedo, his arm wrapped around Veronica's waist. He looked every bit the part of a successful millionaire, his confidence radiating as he smiled for the photographers. But the moment his eyes met Amanda's, his smile froze. For a split second, Gabriel looked as though he had seen a ghost. His gaze shifted from Amanda to Lucas, his expression morphing from shock to confusion, then to something unreadable. Veronica, noticing Gabriel's sudden distraction, followed his gaze. Her perfectly made-up face hardened as she realized who Amanda was and who the boy at her side resembled. The ceremony began shortly after, but Gabriel's composure was visibly shaken. His mind wasn't on the vows or the orchestrated display of affection with Veronica. It was on Amanda and the boy who looked so much like him it was impossible to deny. Throughout the ceremony, he stole glances at them, his thoughts racing. As the reception began, Amanda found herself face-to-face with Gabriel for the first time in over 2 years. He approached her during a lull in the festivities, his expression guarded, but his eyes filled with questions. "Amanda," he said, his voice low. "What are you doing here?" Amanda met his gaze calmly. "You invited me, remember? Or was that just for show?" Gabriel's jaw tightened. "That doesn't explain." His voice trailed off as he glanced at Lucas, who was happily munching on a cookie. "Who is he?" Amanda raised an eyebrow, her voice firm but not unkind. "His name is Lucas. Your son." Gabriel's face drained of color. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Veronica, who had been hovering nearby, stormed over, her eyes blazing. "What is this, Gabriel?" she demanded. "Who is this child?" Before Gabriel could respond, Amanda stepped forward, her voice calm but resolute. "This is Lucas, my son. And as you can see, he's the spitting image of his father. But don't worry, Veronica," she added, her tone cool. "We don't need anything from you." Veronica's face twisted in anger as she turned on Gabriel. "You never told me about this. Is it true? Is he yours?" Gabriel stammered, his usually composed demeanor unraveling. I didn't know." Amanda didn't wait to hear the rest of their exchange. She had said her piece. Taking Lucas's hand, she walked away, leaving Gabriel and Veronica to deal with the fallout. As she exited the grand hall, Amanda felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had faced Gabriel, not with anger or bitterness, but with strength and grace. And she had shown him what he had lost, a life filled with love and purpose. Outside, Amanda knelt down to Lucas's level, brushing a stray curl from his forehead. "Ready to go, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice soft. Lucas nodded, his bright eyes shining. "Can we get ice cream?" Amanda laughed, scooping him up into her arms. Ice cream it is. As they walked away from the lavish estate, Amanda felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. Gabriel's world might have been built on wealth and appearances, but hers was built on something far more meaningful: resilience, love, and the unbreakable bond she shared with her son. The echoes of the wedding hall faded behind Amanda as she walked toward the car with Lucas in her arms. The night air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of roses from the estate gardens. She had expected a confrontation, but not one as chaotic and raw as what had just unfolded. Still, she held her head high. She had nothing to apologize for, nothing to regret. The truth was out, and Gabriel would have to face it. But Amanda didn't make it to the car before Gabriel caught up with her. His voice called out from behind, sharp but desperate. "Amanda, wait." She paused, turning slowly to face him. Lucas shifted in her arms, his small hand tugging at her dress as he stared at the man who had shouted. Gabriel approached quickly, his usually confident stride now uneven, his face flushed with a mix of emotions. "Do you mind explaining what just happened back there?" Gabriel demanded, his voice tight. His eyes darted to Lucas, who was now studying him with wide, curious eyes. "Is he really?" "Yes," Amanda interrupted, her tone steady. "He's your son, Gabriel." Gabriel's breath caught as he looked at Lucas again. The boy was the spitting image of him, there was no denying it. Lucas's curls, his almond-shaped eyes, even the small dimple on his left cheek. It was like staring at a younger version of himself. "Why didn't you tell me?" Gabriel asked, his voice a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You should have." "Don't you dare put this on me," Amanda snapped, her voice rising for the first time. "I told you, Gabriel. When I found out I was pregnant, I called you. I gave you the chance to be a part of his life, and you slammed the door in my face. You said it wasn't your problem. Do you remember that?" Gabriel's face twisted with guilt, but he didn't reply. He couldn't. The memory of that conversation, so easy to dismiss at the time, now weighed on him like a stone. "You made your choice," Amanda continued, her tone sharp but controlled. "You walked away. And I picked up the pieces. I raised him, I loved him, and I've given him everything you never even thought to offer. So don't stand there and act like I owe you an explanation." Gabriel ran a hand through his hair, frustration etched into his features. "I didn't know, Amanda. I didn't know you were serious." "Because you didn't want to know," Amanda shot back. "You were too busy chasing your new life, your perfect image. Lucas didn't fit into that, so you chose to ignore him." Lucas, sensing the tension, clung to Amanda's shoulder, his small voice breaking the moment. "Mommy, who's that man?" Amanda's heart clenched, but she forced a gentle smile as she kissed Lucas's forehead. "Just someone from Mommy's past, sweetheart. Don't worry about him." The words stung Gabriel more than he cared to admit. Someone from her past. Was that all he was now? He had imagined this wedding as the pinnacle of his achievements, a celebration of the life he had built. But in one evening, Amanda had shattered that illusion, bringing with her a truth he couldn't escape. "Let me explain," Gabriel said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "I made mistakes, Amanda. I know I did. But I deserve to. No, Amanda interrupted again, her voice firm. You don't get to rewrite history, Gabriel. You don't get to show up now and pretend to care just because the truth is staring you in the face. Lucas and I have built a life without you, and we're doing just fine. Gabriel's shoulders sagged, his frustration giving way to something more vulnerable. I want to know him, he said quietly. I deserve the chance to know my son. Amanda's expression softened, but only slightly. You had your chance, Gabriel. And you walked away. This isn't about what you deserve. This is about what Lucas deserves, a life filled with love, stability, and people who won't abandon him. Gabriel looked down at Lucas again, his eyes filled with regret. The boy was staring at him curiously, his head tilted slightly. Gabriel wanted to say something, anything, but he couldn't find the words. What could he say to a child he had ignored before he even knew him? As the silence stretched on, Veronica stormed out of the wedding hall, her heels clicking loudly against the stone pathway. Her face was a mask of fury as she approached them. Gabriel, she snapped, her voice dripping with venom. What is going on? The guests are talking, the photographers are asking questions, and you're out here with them? Amanda didn't flinch under Veronica's glare. Instead, she shifted Lucas in her arms and met Veronica's gaze head-on. We were just leaving, she said coolly. Veronica turned her attention to Gabriel, her voice lowering but no less angry. You didn't tell me about this. About him. She pointed at Lucas, her perfectly manicured finger trembling. What else are you hiding from me, Gabriel? Gabriel opened his mouth to respond, but Veronica didn't wait for an answer. You've humiliated me, she hissed. You've ruined everything. I didn't, Gabriel began, but Veronica cut him off with a sharp wave of her hand. I'm done, Gabriel. You can deal with this mess on your own. Without another word, she spun on her heel and stalked back toward the hall, her designer gown trailing behind her. Gabriel watched her go, his expression a mixture of frustration and defeat. Amanda felt no satisfaction in the scene that had just unfolded. She didn't come here for revenge or to destroy Gabriel's life. She had come to show him the truth, to show him that she and Lucas had risen above his abandonment. Goodbye, Gabriel, Amanda said softly. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. She turned and walked away, holding Lucas close. Gabriel didn't call after her this time. He stood there in the cool night air, watching as the woman he had once loved disappeared into the darkness with a son he would never truly know. As Amanda drove away from the estate, Lucas fell asleep in his car seat, his small hand clutching the corner of his blanket. Amanda glanced at him in the rearview mirror, her heart swelling with love. She didn't need Gabriel's approval or his involvement. She had everything she needed right here. For the first time in years, Amanda felt truly free. Gabriel stood outside the grand wedding venue, staring at the path where Amanda and Lucas had disappeared moments before. The sound of distant laughter and music from the reception felt like a cruel mockery of his unraveling life. His mind raced, trying to make sense of everything he had just learned. Lucas was his son. There was no denying it. Every detail, the curls, the dimple, the eyes, was an unspoken confirmation. He wanted to chase after Amanda, demand answers, beg for forgiveness, but he couldn't move. His feet felt glued to the ground, weighed down by the enormity of his mistakes. Inside the hall, the guests were surely speculating, whispering about the scandal that had overshadowed his perfect wedding day. Veronica's furious departure only cemented the embarrassment. The life Gabriel had so carefully constructed was beginning to crumble, piece by piece. As he finally re-entered the hall, the murmurs from the crowd quieted, but the weight of their judgment was palpable. Guests avoided his gaze, their conversations hushed. Gabriel's business partner, Eduardo, approached him, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Gabriel, Eduardo said carefully, do you want to explain what just happened out there? Gabriel sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated, he muttered, his voice heavy with frustration. Eduardo raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. Complicated? The mother of your child shows up with a boy who looks exactly like you, and it's complicated? Gabriel's temper flared, but he kept his voice low. "This isn't your business, Eduardo." "It's everyone's business now," Eduardo replied, gesturing toward the curious guests. "You should have been honest about this, Gabriel. This kind of scandal doesn't just disappear." Gabriel felt a pang of anger at Eduardo's words, but knew they were true. The image he had spent years cultivating, successful entrepreneur, self-made millionaire, perfect fiancé, was shattered. His carefully crafted facade had been torn apart by a single moment of truth. The reception dragged on, but Gabriel was no longer the charismatic host everyone admired. He stood in the corner, nursing a drink and watching as Veronica's family exchanged tense whispers. Eventually, Veronica's mother approached him, her expression icy. "Gabriel," she began, her tone sharp, "we need to talk." He nodded, following her to a quieter part of the venue. Her words were precise, each one cutting like a knife. "This situation is unacceptable," she said. "My daughter deserves better than to be humiliated on her wedding day. You've made a mockery of her and this family." Gabriel tried to explain, stumbling over his words. "I didn't know. Amanda never told me." "It doesn't matter," Veronica's mother snapped. "What matters is that you've shown us who you truly are. This marriage is over." Gabriel's stomach sank. He wanted to fight back, to defend himself, but he couldn't argue with the truth. Veronica had already left, and her family's support was evaporating before his eyes. In the days that followed, Gabriel's life spiraled further out of control. News of the wedding fiasco spread quickly, reaching social media and even the tabloids. Headlines like "Millionaire Groom's Secret Love Child Revealed at Wedding" and "Scandal at the Rivera Montoya Ceremony" were plastered everywhere. Clients and investors began to distance themselves, wary of associating with someone embroiled in such public controversy. Gabriel's once thriving companies started losing deals, and whispers of mistrust circulated in the business world. His reputation, once his greatest asset, was now his biggest liability. Gabriel's home, a sleek penthouse overlooking the city, felt empty and cold. Veronica's belongings had been removed, leaving stark, unadorned spaces where her touch had once brought warmth. Gabriel found himself pacing the living room at night, unable to sleep, his mind replaying the scene at the wedding over and over. The image of Lucas, his son, haunted him. He had ignored Amanda's call, dismissed her plea for help, and turned his back on the life they had created together. Now, the consequences of those choices were staring him in the face, and he couldn't escape them. One evening, Gabriel sat at his desk, surrounded by unopened letters and overdue bills. His once flawless life was in shambles, but amidst the chaos, one thought kept gnawing at him. Lucas. He pulled out his phone and stared at Amanda's number. He hadn't called her in years, not since the day he had arrogantly dismissed her pregnancy as her problem. His finger hovered over the call button, but shame and fear stopped him. What could he possibly say? How could he justify his actions? Instead, Gabriel poured himself another drink and sat in silence. The city lights outside his window blurred as tears filled his eyes. He had everything he thought he wanted: wealth, power, success, and yet he felt emptier than ever. Meanwhile, Amanda was thriving in ways Gabriel couldn't comprehend. The confrontation at the wedding had been daunting, but it had also given her a sense of closure she didn't know she needed. For the first time, she felt truly free of Gabriel's shadow. She no longer cared about his opinions or his absence. Her focus was on Lucas and the life they were building together. Lucas was a bright, curious child who brought joy to everyone he met. Amanda marveled at his resilience, his ability to find happiness in the smallest things. Watching him grow and thrive was the greatest reward she could have asked for. Amanda also found strength in her work. She had started a small business from home, creating handmade crafts and selling them online. The business had grown steadily, giving her financial independence and a sense of accomplishment. Every sale was a reminder that she was capable, resourceful, and enough. Gabriel, in his growing desperation, began searching for ways to reconnect with Amanda and Lucas. He knew he couldn't erase the past, but he wanted to make amends. He started attending therapy, hoping to understand why he had made the choices that led to his downfall. The sessions were painful, forcing him to confront the selfishness and arrogance that had driven so many of his decisions. "I was so focused on success," Gabriel admitted to his therapist, "that I forgot what really mattered. I pushed away the people who cared about me, thinking I didn't need them. But now, I don't know how to fix it." His therapist's response was simple but profound. "Sometimes, Gabriel, it's not about fixing the past. It's about learning from it and doing better moving forward. You can't undo the harm you've caused, but you can choose to be a better person today." Gabriel eventually mustered the courage to send Amanda a letter. He poured his heart into it, apologizing for his actions and asking for a chance to be part of Lucas's life. But when the letter arrived, Amanda hesitated to open it. She had spent so long healing from Gabriel's betrayal, and she wasn't sure she wanted to reopen that chapter of her life. In the end, Amanda read the letter but chose not to respond. Gabriel's words, while heartfelt, didn't change the fact that he had abandoned her and Lucas when they needed him most. Forgiveness was a gift Amanda had already given herself, and she wasn't about to compromise the peace she had found. Gabriel, for all his remorse and efforts to change, would never truly escape the consequences of his choices. His wealth, his status, and his ambition had cost him the most important things in life. And though he yearned for redemption, he would forever remain on the outside, looking in on the family he could have had but had let slip through his fingers. Amanda sat on the porch of her modest home, sipping a cup of tea as the early morning sun cast golden light over the small garden she had lovingly cultivated. Lucas played a few feet away, his laughter filling the air as he chased a butterfly. Watching him, Amanda felt a sense of peace that had eluded her for so long. This life, though not the one she had once envisioned, was hers. Every struggle, every sacrifice, had led to this moment of quiet happiness. The days following Gabriel's wedding had been transformative. Confronting him, not with vengeance but with dignity, had lifted a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying. For years, she had been haunted by the way he had left her, by the unanswered questions and the pain of being discarded. But now she felt free. Gabriel's choices no longer defined her. She was not the woman he had left behind. She was stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. Lucas, too, had flourished in the life they had built together. His curiosity and boundless energy brought joy to even the most mundane days. Amanda had learned to see the world through his eyes, finding wonder in the little things: a colorful flower, the sound of rain on the roof, the sparkle of stars in the night sky. He was her greatest gift, a constant reminder that even in the darkest times, there was light. One evening, as Amanda tidied up after dinner, Lucas toddled over to her, holding a crayon drawing in his small hands. "Look, Mommy," he said excitedly, thrusting the paper toward her. Amanda knelt to take the drawing, her heart swelling with pride. It was a messy but endearing depiction of the two of them holding hands in front of their home. Lucas had even added their small garden, complete with colorful scribbles for the flowers. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Amanda said, pulling him into a hug. "You're such a talented artist." Lucas beamed, his cheeks dimpling in a way that reminded her of Gabriel. For a fleeting moment, she felt a pang of sadness, not for herself, but for Lucas. He deserved to know where he came from, to have answers when he was old enough to ask. But Amanda quickly pushed the thought aside. She had no intention of letting Gabriel back into their lives. Whatever he wanted now, it was too little, too late. Meanwhile, Gabriel's attempts to rebuild his life continued, but his progress was slow and fraught with challenges. The fallout from the wedding had left him isolated, his professional relationships strained, and his personal life in shambles. For the first time, he was forced to confront the consequences of his actions without the safety net of his wealth and status. He spent hours reflecting on his mistakes, replaying moments from his past with Amanda. He thought of the nights she had stayed up late, working tirelessly to support him while he chased his dreams. He remembered the warmth of her laughter, the way she believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. And he thought of Lucas, the son he had ignored, now thriving without him. The regret was suffocating, but Gabriel clung to the hope that he could still make amends. He attended therapy religiously, working through the selfishness and arrogance that had driven so many of his choices. Slowly, he began to see the man he had become and the man he wanted to be. Amanda, unaware of Gabriel's internal struggles, focused on expanding her small business. What had started as a modest online shop selling handmade crafts had grown into a thriving enterprise. Orders poured in daily, and Amanda found herself hiring help to keep up with demand. The work was fulfilling, not just financially, but emotionally. Every piece she created felt like a testament to her resilience and creativity. Her newfound success allowed her to give Lucas experiences she had once thought impossible. She took him to the zoo, where his eyes lit up at the sight of elephants and lions. They spent weekends exploring local parks, building sandcastles on the beach, and picnicking under the shade of tall trees. Amanda made sure Lucas knew he was loved, that he never felt the absence of the father who had walked away. One afternoon, as Amanda and Lucas strolled through the local farmer's market, they ran into Marissa, a nurse who had once been Amanda's lifeline during her pregnancy. Marissa's face lit up when she saw them, and she rushed over, enveloping Amanda in a warm hug. "It's so good to see you," Marissa said, her eyes sparkling. "And look at Lucas. He's grown so much." Amanda smiled, glancing at her son, who was busy examining a stall of brightly colored fruit. "He's my little adventurer," she said proudly. "We're doing well, Marissa. Better than I ever imagined." Marissa nodded, her expression turning serious. "You've come so far, Amanda. I always knew you had it in you." Their conversation continued as they walked through the market, catching up on each other's lives. Marissa shared stories from her work at the hospital, while Amanda recounted the ups and downs of running her business. It was a reminder of how far Amanda had come, not just in her circumstances, but in her mindset. She was no longer defined by her past or by Gabriel's absence. She was building a future entirely her own. One evening, as Amanda put Lucas to bed, he looked up at her with his big, curious eyes. "Mommy, where's my daddy?" he asked innocently. The question caught Amanda off guard, though she had known it would come eventually. She sat on the edge of his bed, her heart aching as she tried to find the right words. "Well, sweetheart," she began gently, "your daddy isn't with us. But you have so many people who love you, me, your friends, and everyone who helps us. You're surrounded by love, Lucas." The boy nodded, satisfied for now, and snuggled into his blankets. Amanda kissed his forehead, her resolve strengthening. She would answer his questions when the time came, but for now, she would protect the peace they had worked so hard to create. Months later, Amanda received another letter from Gabriel. It arrived in the same ornate envelope as the wedding invitation but carried a different tone. Gabriel apologized deeply, pouring his heart onto the page. He admitted his mistakes, expressed his regret, and asked for a chance to meet Lucas, not to disrupt their lives but simply to be part of his son's world. Amanda read the letter carefully, her emotions conflicted. She had forgiven Gabriel in her heart long ago, not for his sake but for her own peace. Yet, the idea of letting him back into their lives felt like opening a door she had worked so hard to close. In the end, Amanda chose not to respond. She had built a life filled with love and stability, and she wasn't willing to risk that for someone who had proven unworthy of her trust. Lucas deserved a father, yes, but not at the cost of the peace they had found. As Amanda tucked the letter away, she looked around her home, a home filled with laughter, creativity, and hope. She had risen above the pain, the betrayal, and the abandonment. Her life was her own, and no one, not even Gabriel, could take that from her. Amanda smiled as Lucas ran into the room, holding a crayon drawing and calling her name. This was her new beginning, and she wouldn't trade it for anything. Gabriel sat alone in the dimly lit living room of his now silent penthouse, nursing a glass of whiskey as the city skyline glimmered outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. The room, once a symbol of his success and ambition, now felt hollow, a reflection of the emptiness inside him. Veronica was gone, taking with her the glamorous life he thought he had wanted. His business was struggling, his reputation tarnished, and the noise of his once busy social life had faded into deafening silence. But none of that compared to the ache that consumed him every time he thought about Amanda and Lucas. He had lost more than a relationship, he had lost a family. And the guilt weighed on him like a lead blanket, suffocating and unrelenting. For months, he had avoided looking at the photos from the wedding, afraid to face the truth he had been running from. But that evening, Gabriel finally opened the envelope containing the images. The first few pictures were as expected: smiling guests, lavish decorations, and posed shots of him and Veronica. But as he flipped through the stack, he froze. There it was, Amanda standing in the middle of the reception hall, holding Lucas's hand. The boy's curious expression and unmistakable resemblance to him pierced through Gabriel's carefully constructed defenses. His eyes lingered on Lucas's face, the dimpled smile so achingly familiar. Gabriel couldn't deny the pang of longing in his chest. He had missed so much: Lucas's first words, his first steps, the milestones that marked a child's early years. And for what? The pursuit of wealth and status that now seemed meaningless. Gabriel put the photos down and buried his face in his hands. How could he make amends for everything he had done? Was it even possible? He didn't know the answers, but for the first time, he understood the depth of the damage he had caused, not just to Amanda and Lucas, but to himself. Meanwhile, Amanda's life was filled with new opportunities and challenges. Her business continued to grow, attracting attention from larger retailers who wanted to collaborate. It was a far cry from the days when she had stitched crafts at her small kitchen table, wondering how she would make ends meet. Now, she was thriving, and every success felt like a triumph over the hardships she had endured. One afternoon, Amanda was invited to speak at a local women's empowerment event. The organizer, a former customer who had admired Amanda's resilience and creativity, wanted her to share her story. At first, Amanda hesitated. She wasn't used to being in the spotlight, and the idea of recounting her painful past in front of a room full of strangers made her uneasy. But as she thought about it, she realized how far she had come, and how her story might inspire others to overcome their own struggles. The day of the event arrived, and Amanda stood backstage, her heart pounding as she waited to be introduced. She glanced at Lucas, who was sitting in the front row with Marissa, his tiny hands clutching a juice box. Seeing his bright, eager face calmed her nerves. She was doing this for him, for the life they had built together, and for every woman who had ever felt powerless. When Amanda stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. She began by talking about her journey, falling in love, supporting Gabriel through his rise to success, and the betrayal that had left her broken. But she didn't dwell on the pain. Instead, she focused on how she had rebuilt herself, piece by piece, and the strength she had found in motherhood. "I thought my life was over when he left," Amanda said, her voice steady. "But what I learned is that we're stronger than we think. When you strip away the illusions and the expectations, you find out what really matters. For me, it was my son. He gave me a reason to keep going, to believe in myself again." Her words resonated deeply with the audience. By the time she finished, the room erupted in applause, and several women approached her afterward to thank her for sharing her story. Amanda felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't expected. She had turned her pain into something powerful, something that could help others. That same evening, Gabriel sat in his car outside Amanda's home, gripping the steering wheel as he debated whether to knock on her door. He had spent weeks drafting letters, rehearsing conversations, and imagining what he would say to her and Lucas. But now, faced with the reality of seeing them again, he felt paralyzed. What right did he have to intrude on their lives? Amanda had made it clear at the wedding that she didn't need him, and she had been right. She had built a beautiful life without him, one filled with love and stability. The last thing Gabriel wanted was to disrupt that. Yet, he couldn't ignore the pull in his chest, the need to see Lucas, to hear his laugh, to know the boy he had missed out on raising. He wanted to tell Amanda how sorry he was, not because he expected forgiveness, but because she deserved to hear it. Gabriel knew he couldn't undo the past, but maybe, just maybe, he could be better moving forward. After a long moment, he started the car and drove away. He wasn't ready, not yet. But as he left, he resolved to keep trying, not for his sake, but for Lucas's. Gabriel didn't know what the future held, but he knew he couldn't give up. In the months that followed, Amanda continued to thrive. Her work with the community grew, and she became a mentor to other women who were navigating difficult circumstances. Lucas, meanwhile, blossomed into a happy, curious child who charmed everyone he met. Amanda often marveled at his resilience, his ability to find joy in the simplest things. He was her anchor, her greatest accomplishment. One evening, as she tucked Lucas into bed, he looked up at her with his big, curious eyes. "Mommy," he said softly, "do you think I'll ever meet my daddy?" Amanda's heart ached at the question, but she didn't let it show. She smoothed his hair and kissed his forehead. "Maybe one day," she said gently. "But no matter what, you have me, and I'll always love you." Lucas nodded, satisfied, and closed his eyes. Amanda sat by his bedside for a while, watching him sleep. She knew the day would come when she would have to tell him the full truth, but for now, she was content to let him enjoy the innocence of childhood. As she left the room, Amanda felt a sense of peace. She didn't need Gabriel's involvement to give Lucas a good life. She had proven that she was enough, and Lucas had everything he needed to thrive. Gabriel, for his part, remained on the fringes of their lives, watching from afar as Amanda and Lucas flourished. He continued his therapy, working to become the man he wished he had been years ago. Whether or not Amanda ever let him back in, he knew he had to keep trying, for himself and for the son he might never truly know. Amanda's life had settled into a steady rhythm, one filled with small but meaningful joys. Her mornings were dedicated to Lucas, preparing him for preschool and enjoying their shared laughter over breakfast. Her afternoons were spent managing her growing business, creating new designs, and fulfilling orders from customers who admired her creativity and resilience. And her evenings belonged to herself, a time to reflect, recharge, and dream about the future. Lucas, now almost 4, was the heart of her world. His boundless energy and inquisitive nature brought light into every room he entered. He loved exploring the world around him, asking endless questions about the stars, animals, and why rainbows existed. Amanda found herself marveling at his curiosity and joy, traits that reminded her of how far they had come together. One weekend, Amanda decided to take Lucas to the local museum. It was hosting an exhibit on dinosaurs, and Lucas had been excited about it for weeks. As they walked through the grand halls, Lucas's small hand in hers, Amanda couldn't help but smile at his enthusiasm. He pointed at every display, his wide eyes lighting up as he marveled at the towering skeletons. "Look, Mommy," Lucas exclaimed, pulling her toward a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex. "It's so big." "It is, sweetheart," Amanda replied, kneeling to his level. "Can you imagine how loud it must have roared?" Lucas roared playfully in response, drawing amused smiles from the other visitors. Amanda laughed, ruffling his curls. These moments, filled with love and laughter, were what she cherished most. As they moved to the next exhibit, Amanda felt a strange sensation, a prickle at the back of her neck, as though someone was watching her. She glanced around, her eyes scanning the crowd, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Shaking off the feeling, she turned her attention back to Lucas, who was engrossed in a hands-on activity. But the feeling persisted, and when Amanda looked up again, her breath caught in her throat. Standing a few feet away, partially obscured by a group of visitors, was Gabriel. For a moment, she thought she was imagining it. But then their eyes met, and the reality of his presence hit her like a wave. Gabriel looked different, older, perhaps, or maybe just more tired. He was dressed casually, a stark contrast to the polished suits he used to wear. There was an uncertainty in his posture, a hesitance that Amanda had never seen before. Gabriel's gaze shifted from Amanda to Lucas, who was now chatting animatedly with another child. The recognition in Gabriel's eyes was immediate, and Amanda could see the emotions flickering across his face: longing, regret, and a hint of hope. Amanda's first instinct was to leave, to gather Lucas and walk away before Gabriel could approach them. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the look in Gabriel's eyes, or maybe it was the realization that running wouldn't change anything. Gabriel was Lucas's father, whether she liked it or not, and sooner or later, they would have to confront that truth. Gabriel took a tentative step forward, his hands shoved into his pockets. "Amanda," he said softly, his voice carrying a mixture of uncertainty and vulnerability. "I didn't expect to see you here." Amanda straightened, her expression guarded. "Neither did I." His eyes flickered to Lucas again, who was still blissfully unaware of the tension between the two adults. "Is that?" "Yes," Amanda said firmly, cutting him off. "That's Lucas." Gabriel swallowed hard, his gaze lingering on the boy. "He's grown so much," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "He's amazing." Amanda didn't respond immediately. She studied Gabriel, searching for any sign of the man she had once known. There was a softness in his demeanor, a humility that hadn't been there before. But she wasn't ready to let her guard down. "What are you doing here, Gabriel?" she asked, her tone measured. He hesitated, glancing around as if searching for the right words. "I've been thinking about you." "About him?" "I know I don't have the right to ask for anything, but I want to know him, Amanda. I want to be part of his life." Amanda's chest tightened. For years, she had wondered if Gabriel would ever come to this realization, and now that the moment was here, she didn't know how to feel. Part of her wanted to protect Lucas from any potential heartbreak, but another part of her recognized the sincerity in Gabriel's voice. "It's not that simple," Amanda said, her voice steady. "You can't just walk back into our lives and expect everything to be fine. Lucas doesn't know you. He doesn't even know about you." Gabriel nodded, his shoulders sagging. "I understand that." "I do. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I know I've made mistakes, horrible mistakes, but I've changed, Amanda. I want to make things right, even if it takes time." Amanda looked at him, her emotions a tangled web of anger, sadness, and cautious hope. She wanted to believe him, but trust wasn't something she could give lightly, not after everything they had been through. "Lucas is my priority," she said firmly. "If I even consider letting you into his life, it will be on my terms. You'll have to prove that you're serious, that you won't hurt him." Gabriel met her gaze, his eyes filled with determination. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said. "I promise." Their conversation was interrupted by Lucas, who ran over holding a small model dinosaur. "Mommy, look what I made," he said excitedly, holding it up for her to see. Amanda smiled, kneeling to admire his creation. "It's wonderful, sweetheart." Lucas turned to Gabriel, his innocent eyes filled with curiosity. "Who's that?" he asked. Gabriel crouched down, his voice gentle. "Hi, Lucas. My name's Gabriel." Lucas tilted his head, studying him. "You look like me." Amanda's breath caught, but Gabriel smiled, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I guess I do." Lucas nodded, seemingly satisfied, and turned back to Amanda. "Can we go see the T-Rex again?" "Of course," Amanda said, taking his hand. She glanced at Gabriel, her expression softening. "We'll talk later." Gabriel nodded, watching as Amanda and Lucas walked away. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of hope, a chance to rebuild what he had lost. But he knew it wouldn't be easy. Gaining Amanda's trust and becoming part of Lucas's life would take time, patience, and unwavering commitment. As Gabriel left the museum that day, he resolved to keep trying, no matter how long it took. Lucas deserved a father who would fight for him, and Gabriel was determined to be that man. In the days following the unexpected encounter at the museum, Amanda's thoughts were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Seeing Gabriel again had stirred feelings she thought she had long buried, anger, sadness, but also a faint glimmer of something else. Hope. She wasn't sure. Lucas, of course, was blissfully unaware of the complexity of the situation, his world still bright and simple. Amanda envied him for that. Late one evening, after putting Lucas to bed, Amanda sat at the small desk in her living room, staring at the blank screen of her laptop. Gabriel's request to be part of Lucas's life echoed in her mind. She had told him they would talk, but now that the moment had come, she wasn't sure how to proceed. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of her phone vibrating on the table. It was a message from Gabriel. "Thank you for not walking away. I know I have a long way to go, but I meant what I said. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust. Just let me know when you're ready to talk." Amanda sighed, her fingers hovering over the keyboard as she debated how to respond. After a moment, she typed back, "I'll call you tomorrow. We'll discuss what this might look like. But Lucas comes first, always." Gabriel's reply came almost instantly, "Of course. Thank you." The next evening, after Lucas had fallen asleep, Amanda called Gabriel. He answered on the first ring, his voice cautious but eager.
"Hi, Amanda," he said.
"Thank you for calling." "Don't thank me yet," Amanda replied. Her tone wasn't cold, but it was firm. "This isn't about you, Gabriel. It's about Lucas." "I know," Gabriel said quickly. "And I want to do this the right way. Whatever boundaries you set, I'll respect them." Amanda appreciated his willingness to cooperate, but she wasn't ready to let her guard down. "This isn't going to be easy," she said. "Lucas doesn't know who you are. I can't just drop this on him." Gabriel hesitated. "How do you want to start?" Amanda considered his question carefully.
"We'll start slow," she said.
"If you're serious about this, you need to show me and Lucas that you're committed. Maybe we can arrange for you to meet him in a casual setting, but I won't tell him who you are right away. He needs time to get to know you." Gabriel agreed, without hesitation. "Whatever you think is best. I'll follow your lead." Amanda's chest tightened. She wanted to believe he was sincere, but trust wasn't something she could offer freely, not after everything they had been through. "This is your chance, Gabriel," she said quietly. "Don't waste it." The first meeting took place at the park on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Amanda had told Lucas they were meeting a friend, keeping the explanation simple to avoid overwhelming him. Gabriel arrived early, dressed casually, and carrying a small bag of toys he had picked out for Lucas. When Amanda and Lucas approached, Gabriel's heart raced. Lucas was holding Amanda's hand, chattering excitedly about the swings. Gabriel smiled nervously as they reached him. "Hi," he said, his voice soft. "It's good to see you both." "Hi," Amanda replied, her tone neutral. She knelt down to Lucas's level. "Sweetheart, this is Gabriel. He's going to play with us today." Lucas looked up at Gabriel, his curious eyes wide. "Hi, Gabriel," he said shyly. "Hi, Lucas," Gabriel replied, crouching to his level. "I brought some toys. Do you like cars?" Lucas's face lit up. "I love cars." Gabriel pulled a small toy car from the bag and handed it to him. Lucas took it eagerly, his initial shyness fading as he examined the car. "Thank you," he said, his smile bright. "You're welcome," Gabriel said, his voice filled with emotion. Amanda watched the interaction carefully, her heart conflicted. Lucas's innocence made the situation seem simple, but for her, it was anything but. She stayed close, observing as Gabriel and Lucas began to play. Over the next few weeks, Gabriel continued to meet with Amanda and Lucas at the park. Their interactions were slow and cautious, but Lucas quickly warmed to Gabriel. He began asking for him by name, his natural curiosity leading to questions Amanda wasn't ready to answer. "Mommy, is Gabriel your friend?" Lucas asked one evening as Amanda tucked him into bed. Amanda hesitated. "He's someone who cares about us, sweetheart," she said gently. "And he's trying to get to know you." Lucas nodded, satisfied for now, and snuggled into his blankets. Amanda kissed his forehead, her resolve strengthening. She would protect Lucas at all costs, even if it meant keeping her own emotions in check. Gabriel, for his part, was determined to prove himself. He showed up to every meeting on time, prepared to play, listen, and learn. He never pushed, respecting the boundaries Amanda had set. Slowly, he began to see glimpses of the life he could have had, a life filled with love, laughter, and connection. One afternoon, as they played in the park, Lucas ran up to Gabriel, holding a flower he had picked. "This is for you," he said, his face beaming. Gabriel knelt down, his throat tightening as he took the flower. "Thank you, Lucas," he said softly. That's very kind of you. Lucas grinned and ran back to the swings, leaving Gabriel to marvel at the boy's pure heart. He glanced at Amanda, who was watching from a nearby bench. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Gabriel saw a flicker of something in her expression. Not forgiveness, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. Despite the progress, Amanda remained cautious. She knew Gabriel's efforts were genuine, but the scars of his abandonment couldn't be erased so easily. She worried about the day Lucas would inevitably ask more questions, about the moment she would have to tell him the truth. One evening, as they walked home from the park, Lucas looked up at her. "Mommy," he said, "is Gabriel my daddy?" Amanda stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding. She knelt to his level, her hands gently resting on his shoulders. "Why do you ask that, sweetheart?" she said softly. Lucas shrugged. "He looks like me," he said simply. "And he's really nice." Amanda's eyes filled with tears, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Lucas," she said, her voice steady, "Gabriel is someone who cares about you very much. And one day, we'll talk more about who he is. But for now, just know that you are loved. Okay?" Lucas nodded, his trust in her unwavering. "Okay, Mommy." As they continued walking, Amanda's mind raced. She knew the day of full disclosure was approaching, and she needed to prepare for Lucas, for herself, and for Gabriel. For now, she would focus on what mattered most, keeping Lucas happy, safe, and surrounded by love. Amanda sat at the dining table late one evening, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. The house was quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the refrigerator. Lucas was asleep in his room, his small body curled beneath his favorite dinosaur blanket. Amanda watched the steam rise from her cup, her thoughts heavy with the weight of the decision she had to make. Lucas's question about Gabriel still echoed in her mind. Is Gabriel my daddy? She had known this moment would come eventually, but she hadn't anticipated it arriving so soon. Lucas was growing older, his curiosity sharpening with every passing day. Amanda couldn't keep the truth from him forever, but the thought of telling him filled her with dread. How would he react? Would he feel hurt? Betrayed? And what role, if any, should Gabriel play in their lives moving forward? Her phone buzzed on the table, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Gabriel. "Hi, Amanda. I just wanted to thank you for letting me spend time with Lucas. He's such an incredible kid. I know I have a lot to prove, but I'm grateful for this chance." Amanda sighed, her emotions a tangled knot. Gabriel had been consistent, patient, and respectful of her boundaries, but that didn't erase the years of absence or the pain he had caused. She knew he was trying, but could she trust him with something as precious as Lucas's heart? The following weekend, Amanda decided it was time to confront the truth head-on. She arranged to meet Gabriel at the park, this time without Lucas. When Gabriel arrived, he looked surprised to see her alone, but he didn't comment. They sat on a bench beneath a large oak tree, the air between them tense. "I wanted to talk to you about Lucas," Amanda began, her voice steady but guarded. "He's starting to ask questions?" Gabriel nodded, his expression serious. "I've been expecting that. What has he said?" "He asked if you're his daddy," Amanda said bluntly, watching Gabriel's reaction. Gabriel's breath hitched, and he looked down at his hands. "What did you tell him?" Amanda hesitated. "I told him that you care about him, and that we'd talk more when the time is right. But Gabriel, that time is coming sooner than I thought. He's a smart boy. He notices things." Gabriel nodded, his jaw tightening. "I understand. I'm ready to tell him, Amanda. I'll do whatever you think is best." Amanda studied him, her gaze sharp. "Are you really ready? Because this isn't just about saying the words. If we tell Lucas the truth, you need to be in it for the long haul. No disappearing, no half measures. He deserves consistency, Gabriel. He deserves to know he can count on you." Gabriel met her eyes, his voice steady. "I know. And I promise, Amanda, I won't let him down. I've already let both of you down more than I can ever make up for. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Amanda searched his face for any sign of doubt, but she found none. Gabriel's sincerity was undeniable, and though it didn't erase the past, it gave her a sliver of hope for the future. The next day, Amanda sat down with Lucas at the kitchen table. He was coloring a picture of a rocket ship, his tongue poking out in concentration as he carefully filled in the lines. "Lucas," Amanda said gently, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Can we talk for a minute?" Lucas looked up, his bright eyes curious. "Okay, Mommy." Amanda took a deep breath. "Remember how you asked me about Gabriel? About whether he's your daddy?" Lucas nodded, setting his crayon down. "Yeah? Well," Amanda began, her voice soft but steady. "The answer is yes. Gabriel is your daddy." Lucas's eyes widened, and he tilted his head. "Really?" Amanda smiled, though her chest felt tight. "Yes, sweetheart. Gabriel is your daddy. He didn't know you very well when you were little, but now he wants to get to know you better. He cares about you a lot." Lucas's brow furrowed as he processed this new information. Why didn't he know me before? Amanda's heart ached at the question, but she had promised herself she would be honest without burdening Lucas with too much. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes," she said carefully. "But what matters is that Gabriel wants to be here for you now. And I'll be here every step of the way, too." Lucas seemed to accept this, his face brightening. "Can we go see him now?" Amanda chuckled, ruffling his hair. "Soon, sweetheart. We'll all spend time together soon." The first meeting after the revelation took place at Amanda's house. Gabriel arrived early, carrying a small bag of books and toys he had picked out for Lucas. His hands trembled slightly as he knocked on the door, but he steadied himself, reminding himself why he was there. When Amanda opened the door, Lucas ran to greet him. "Hi, Gabriel," he said excitedly, then added,
Daddy."
The word hit Gabriel like a bolt of lightning. He crouched down, his eyes filling with tears as he embraced Lucas. "Hi, buddy," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "It's so good to see you." Lucas pulled back, studying Gabriel's face. "Are you going to play with me?" Gabriel laughed, brushing a tear from his cheek. "Of course I am. What should we play first?" Amanda watched the interaction from the doorway, her heart full of both hope and apprehension. Gabriel's presence in their lives was still new, and she knew there would be challenges ahead. But for now, she allowed herself to believe that this could work, that Lucas could have the connection he deserved without losing the stability she had fought so hard to create. Over the next few months, Gabriel became a regular presence in Lucas's life. He joined them for park outings, attended Lucas's preschool events, and even helped Amanda with small tasks around the house. Lucas adored him, and Amanda couldn't deny that Gabriel was making an effort to prove himself. One evening, after Lucas had gone to bed, Gabriel and Amanda sat in the living room, sipping tea. The air between them was no longer tense, but it wasn't entirely comfortable either. They were still navigating the complexities of their new dynamic. "I wanted to thank you," Gabriel said, breaking the silence, "for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful." Amanda looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "You've come a long way, Gabriel."
"But this isn't about deserving."
"It's about doing what's right for Lucas." Gabriel nodded, his gaze steady. "I'm not going to let him down."
"Or you."
Amanda smiled faintly, though her walls remained firmly in place. "We'll see." As Gabriel left that night, Amanda sat alone in the quiet house, her thoughts swirling. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, she felt a sense of cautious optimism. Lucas had his father, she had her independence, and together they were building something new, something imperfect but filled with potential. The months that followed Gabriel's reintegration into Lucas's life were a whirlwind of adjustment and quiet revelations. Amanda watched closely as Gabriel proved himself, not through grand gestures, but in the small, consistent ways that truly mattered. He showed up on time for every visit, remembered Lucas's favorite stories, and sat patiently through endless rounds of his son's favorite board game. For Lucas, the novelty of having his father around quickly turned into something he treasured. Every weekend, Gabriel planned activities tailored to Lucas's interests, trips to the aquarium, kite flying at the park, and building intricate Lego structures on Amanda's living room floor. The bond between father and son blossomed, leaving Amanda with a mix of relief and hesitation. One crisp autumn afternoon, Gabriel arrived to take Lucas apple picking. It was an activity he had done as a child and wanted to share with his son. Amanda decided to join them, partly because Lucas begged her to and partly because she wasn't yet ready to let Gabriel take Lucas out on his own. The orchard was picturesque, with rows of trees heavy with fruit and the scent of cider wafting through the air. Lucas ran ahead, a small basket in his hand, while Amanda and Gabriel walked a few steps behind. "He's really excited," Amanda said, watching Lucas's small figure dart between the trees. Gabriel smiled. "I don't blame him. It's the perfect day for this." There was a pause, the kind that had become less uncomfortable over time. Amanda glanced at Gabriel, noting how different he seemed. The arrogance and attachment that once defined him had been replaced by a quieter, more thoughtful presence. "You've been doing well with him," Amanda said finally. "He really looks forward to seeing you." Gabriel's expression softened. "That means everything to me. I know I can't make up for the years I missed, but I'm trying." Amanda nodded, her guard still partially up but softening with time. "He's happy. That's what matters." At the orchard, Lucas ran back to them, his basket brimming with apples. "Look, Mommy. Look, Daddy," he exclaimed, holding up his bounty with pride. Gabriel knelt to examine the basket, his eyes filled with genuine delight. "You did a great job, buddy. These are perfect. Can we make a pie when we get home?" Lucas asked, his voice filled with anticipation. Amanda laughed. "I think that's a great idea. But you're going to have to help me with the crust." "I will," Lucas promised, his face lighting up. Gabriel watched the exchange, his heart swelling with gratitude. Moments like this, simple and joyful, were what he had been missing all along. Later that evening, after Lucas had gone to bed, Amanda and Gabriel sat at the kitchen table, the smell of fresh apple pie lingering in the air. Gabriel sipped his tea, glancing at Amanda with a mixture of hesitation and determination. "There's something I've been meaning to say," he began, "and I need you to hear me out." Amanda set down her mug, her expression cautious. "Okay." Gabriel took a deep breath. "I know I hurt you, Amanda. More than I can ever put into words. And I know it's going to take a lot more than a few months of effort to undo the damage I caused. But I want you to know that I'm not here out of guilt. I'm here because I care about Lucas. And because I respect you. Everything you've done for him, for yourself, it's incredible. You're incredible." Amanda blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. She searched his face, looking for any trace of manipulation or insincerity, but found none. "Gabriel," she said carefully, "I've moved on from the past. I don't hate you anymore, and I've forgiven you for what you did. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean things can go back to the way they were." Gabriel nodded, his gaze steady. "I'm not asking for that. I just wanted you to know how much I admire you, and how grateful I am that you've given me this chance." Amanda's lips curved into a faint smile. "Lucas deserves to have his father in his life. But don't mistake that for me doing this for you. My priority has always been him." Gabriel smiled back, his heart aching with a mixture of regret and relief. "I know, and I'll never take that for granted." As winter approached, Gabriel began taking on a more active role in Lucas's life. He attended parent-teacher meetings, helped with school projects, and even joined Lucas's preschool class for a Bring Your Parent to School day. Amanda watched from the sidelines, her heart both hopeful and wary. Gabriel was doing everything right, but she couldn't shake the fear that it might not last. One evening, as snow fell gently outside, Amanda sat on the couch, scrolling through old photos on her phone. She stopped on a picture of Lucas as a baby, his wide smile and chubby cheeks filling the frame. The memories of those early days, when she had been alone and scared but determined, came rushing back. Gabriel, who had been helping Lucas with his bedtime routine, walked into the living room. He noticed the photo on Amanda's screen and paused. "Is that Lucas as a baby?" he asked softly. Amanda nodded, her eyes still on the screen.
"Yeah."
"He was about 6 months old here." Gabriel sat down beside her, his expression filled with longing. "I miss so much," he said quietly. I'll never forgive myself for that. Amanda looked at him, her voice gentle but firm. You can't change the past, Gabriel. But you can be here now. And that's what Lucas needs. Gabriel nodded, his resolve strengthening. I'll do whatever it takes. One snowy afternoon, as the three of them built a snowman in the backyard, Lucas turned to Gabriel with a thoughtful expression. Daddy, he said, his voice serious. Why weren't you here before? Gabriel froze, his hands pausing mid-snowball. He looked at Amanda, who gave him a small nod, encouraging him to answer. Gabriel knelt in the snow, meeting Lucas's gaze. That's a really good question, buddy, he said gently. The truth is, I made a big mistake. I didn't realize how important you were, and I wasn't ready to be a good daddy. But now I know how special you are, and I'm here to make it right. Lucas studied him for a moment, then smiled. Okay, can we finish the snowman now? Gabriel laughed, a mix of relief and gratitude washing over him. Of course we can. As they continued to work, Amanda watched them with a mixture of emotions. The wounds of the past would never fully disappear, but for the first time, she began to believe that they could create something new, a life filled with love, forgiveness, and second chances. The winter melted into spring, and with it came a sense of renewal in Amanda's life. The days grew warmer, the trees blossomed, and the once frosted garden behind her home burst into life. Lucas thrived in the sunshine, spending hours outside chasing butterflies, planting flowers with Amanda, and laughing as Gabriel joined in their games. Their lives, though far from perfect, had found a tentative rhythm. For Amanda, this new chapter was both a relief and a challenge. Gabriel's continued presence had proven his sincerity, and Lucas adored him, but Amanda still wrestled with her lingering fears. Trust was not something she could give freely, even now. She watched Gabriel closely, waiting for cracks to appear in his resolve, but none came. One Saturday morning, as Amanda sipped coffee on the porch, Gabriel arrived with a small box in hand. Lucas ran to greet him, his face lighting up as Gabriel crouched to his level. What's in the box, daddies? Lucas asked eagerly. Gabriel smiled, opening the lid to reveal a tiny sapling. This, he said, is a tree we're going to plant together. It's something special for our family. Lucas clapped his hands in excitement, tugging Gabriel toward the garden. Amanda followed, her heart softening at the sight of their shared enthusiasm. Together, the three of them found a spot near the center of the garden, where the sunlight streamed down in golden rays. As they dug the hole and carefully placed the sapling into the ground, Gabriel looked up at Amanda. This tree is a symbol, he said quietly, of growth, of second chances, and of the future we're building for Lucas. Amanda nodded, touched by his words, but wary of letting her emotions show. Let's hope it grows strong, she said, brushing soil from her hands. It will, Gabriel replied, his voice steady. Just like us. As the weeks passed, the sapling became a focal point for their time together. Lucas checked on it daily, excitedly reporting every new leaf and bud. Gabriel often joined him, crouching beside the small tree and talking about how it would grow tall and strong, just like Lucas. Amanda watched these moments from a distance, her heart conflicted. Gabriel's transformation was undeniable, but the scars of the past kept her from fully embracing the changes. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Gabriel stayed for dinner. The table was filled with simple but hearty dishes Amanda had prepared, and the atmosphere was warm and lighthearted. Lucas talked animatedly about his day at preschool, his stories punctuated by bursts of laughter from both Amanda and Gabriel. After Lucas was tucked into bed, Amanda and Gabriel sat on the porch, the night air cool but pleasant. Gabriel broke the silence first. I wanted to talk to you about something, he said, his tone serious. Amanda turned to him, her expression wary. What is it? Gabriel hesitated, as if searching for the right words. I've been thinking about everything we've built here, the progress we've made, and I want to make sure Lucas feels secure. I want him to know that I'm here for the long haul, no matter what. Amanda nodded slowly, unsure of where he was going. I've started looking for a place closer to you, Gabriel continued. Something small but close enough that I can be there for Lucas whenever he needs me. I think it's important for him to feel like I'm not just visiting. I'm part of his life. Amanda's chest tightened at his words. It was a step she hadn't expected, but one that made sense. That's a big commitment, she said carefully. Are you sure you're ready for that? Gabriel met her gaze, his eyes steady. I am. I've spent too much time running from my responsibilities, Amanda. I'm done with that. Lucas deserves better, and so do you. Amanda looked away, her emotions swirling. Gabriel's consistency had begun to chip away at her defenses, but fully trusting him still felt like a leap she wasn't ready to take. We'll see, she said finally. Actions speak louder than words. The months passed and Gabriel followed through on his promise. He moved into a modest home a few streets away, close enough to be part of Lucas's daily life, but far enough to give Amanda the space she still needed. He joined Amanda at Lucas's school events, helped with his soccer practices, and even took on the task of assembling a new bunk bed Lucas had begged for. For Lucas, life felt complete. He loved having both his parents involved, and his joy was infectious. Amanda often found herself smiling more, laughing more, and allowing herself to imagine a future where this new dynamic could work. One day, Lucas came home with a crayon drawing he had made at school. He proudly handed it to Amanda, who held back tears as she studied it. The picture showed the three of them standing together beneath the small tree they had planted in the garden. Above them, Lucas had written in wobbly letters, "My family." Amanda glanced at Gabriel, who had walked in just as she unfolded the drawing. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Amanda saw a glimmer of the man she had once fallen in love with, not the polished, ambitious version, but someone grounded, someone who had learned from his mistakes. It's beautiful, Lucas, Amanda said, pulling her son into a hug. I love it. Me too, Lucas exclaimed, beaming. Gabriel crouched beside them, his voice soft. You did a great job, buddy. Lucas nodded solemnly. Because we're all together now. As summer approached, Amanda began to feel a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The anger and resentment she had carried for so long began to fade, replaced by gratitude for the life she and Lucas had built. Gabriel's presence, once a source of pain, had become something steady and reliable. One evening, as they sat around a campfire in the backyard, Lucas fell asleep in Amanda's lap, his small body wrapped in a blanket. Gabriel sat across from her, the firelight casting warm shadows on his face. You've done an incredible job raising him, Gabriel said quietly. He's kind, smart, and full of life. That's because of you. Amanda looked down at Lucas, her heart full. He's my everything. I know, Gabriel said, his voice steady. And I'm honored to be part of his life. Amanda met his gaze, her defenses finally lowering. You've come a long way, Gabriel. And I'm glad Lucas has you. For the first time, Amanda allowed herself to believe that they could move forward, not as a couple, but as a team. Together, they would create a life filled with love, stability, and hope, a new kind of family.